What up, y'all? Welcome to the Clocked In Podcast. It's your boy Caleb. I got a special guest on today. My guy, introduce yourself.
Justin Cooper. Appreciate you having me on, man.
My guy, Coop. All right, brother. So let's talk about your high school basketball career. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Pine Plains High School, small little town, about 2 hours north of New York City, and then I did a postgraduate year at the Trinity Pauling School.
All right, cool. Actually, it's kind of cool. I have Gavin, right? Doty.
Yeah, yeah. Yep,
I'm gonna get him on here in the next couple of days, and I'm excited to talk to him about prep.
yeah,
So kind of give a little background on prep schools for people that might not know where they hear certain things.
for sure. So
About.
I want to start it with everybody sees people go to prep school and they think it's the best idea for them instead of actually evaluating and researching the benefits to it and what it can provide them. And then also, if they do leave, is it actually the right situation and fit?
Mm,
There's a ton of different prep schools. For some players, it makes a bunch of sense to leave and to go to prep schools. But for some players, honestly, it helps them being the number one person at their school, wherever they are, because that can be real for them at the level that they might play in college. So I think for prep school, number one, it's really about figuring out the correct situation and fit, and then really evaluating like where you currently are and what is it that you're actually looking for. If you're leaving prep school because you think, oh, if I go to prep school, I'm going to be a Division I player, it's not that.
right.
There's plenty of kids that end up going prep for various reasons. Academically, they just need the extra year. It might help them in recruitment. They might get into a better school, things like that. So I think the number one thing with prep school is actually evaluating it and the pros and cons to it, and then try to make your decision off of that.
So to kind of transition that for you, right? So what was your reasoning for going prep?
Yeah, yeah. So I went to a small high school. I was young. I was 17 when I graduated. I had some scholarship schools reaching out, and it just seemed like the right fit for me to do. I wasn't necessarily ready to go to college. I didn't think. The prep school was close by. I knew of it. I knew players on the team. Everything they were telling me seemed to make sense. And I knew as a player that I wasn't going because I needed a scholarship, or I wasn't going because I was chasing Division I. Obviously, if I had the opportunity to go play Division I would have tried to take that opportunity, but it didn't work out that way for me. And I still ended up being in a great situation in college. And I think that year just helped me really transition to become the player that I was when I ended up playing at Cortland.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say that's a perfect kind of segue into Cortland. So what made you decide on going to Cortland, right? I obviously I know I'm from here. I know a
Yep.
ton of people that play basketball here and stuff like that, and there's a rich tradition in the Cortland athletic history there, right? So I know there's a lot that could make someone want to go there, but why did you choose Cortland?
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually funny. I didn't start at Cortland. I actually ended up going to Oswego first out of prep school. Coach
Okay,
Jason Leone, he recruited me.
okay,
I developed a great relationship with him. I ended up going there. And one issue I was dealing with when I got to Oswego was I broke my foot twice when I was at prep school during my one prep school year. So I broke
oh
my
wow,
foot right at the beginning of the season, and I broke it during the season when I came back. Same foot, same area. So I was
Yeesh.
struggling with that a little bit. And then I actually ended up breaking it the second practice at Oswego,
Yeah,
and that required surgery. So I ended up coming back home for the surgery, and I just needed like a refresh and like a restart. I dealt with basically the same injury three times. I had to get surgery, and my brother at the time was attending Cortland. I had a bunch of friends that were attending Cortland, and I was like, I think I just need a fresh start. So I just decided to transfer, and I ended up at Cortland, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made because the 4 years I had there were incredible.
yeah, it was. I was gonna say you're all SUNYAC. You
Yep.
scored well over 1,000 points.
Yep.
D3 hoops All State team two times. So you definitely had a lot of not only just like personal accomplishments, right, but team ones as well.
For sure.
Which it's kind of cool, I'm sure for you, like you said, to look back and like, man, like you go through adversity and you push through it enough and you ended up in the right spot and it worked out
Absolutely.
for everybody involved. So after college, right? Um, what was the plan?
So after college, I knew I wanted to stay in basketball. I was kind of in between deciding on going into college coaching or, training started to become a thing while I was still playing. I got offered the grad assistant position at Iona College.
Okay.
And that's kind of when I would like made my decision of, am I going to go down the college coaching route, or am I going to, try this training thing? I got connected with a few people in the training industry. I was able to bounce some ideas off of them, and they were like, look, if you want to be a trainer and you really value player development, the best thing you can do is just try to attack that.
Hmm.
And, you can always, based on your playing career and based on the connections you have, you can always try to then get into coaching if you feel like it's something that you really want to get into down the line. So I ended up getting into training, and obviously that's taken off a little bit, and it's been really great for me to just be involved with basketball every day and just try to help impact players and help them get better.
Nah, definitely, man. What would you say, um, what would you say are some of the challenges that people don't see, right? So like we and even you as a viewer, right? We see like the videos, right, that you post, and we see all these tips and that stuff, but we don't see the day to day, right? So like, what's like a day in the life for you from wake up till night? You know what I mean? Like the stuff that people don't see.
Yeah, so every day is different. There's some days where I'm on the court the entire day. There's some days where I have to be on my computer the entire day because, that's one of the unique things of, I'm a basketball trainer, but I'm also running a business. So I have to get online. I have to make sure I'm sending emails. I have to make sure our website's up to date. I have to make sure our programs are set. I have to get on phone calls. I have to make sure we're filming content. It's, each day is different in the percentage of like what I'm doing. But every day there's something involved within the business that I'm doing. So whether that's, phone calls on the court, actually training, trying to set up the next month's programs, things like
Hmm.
that. So to try to answer your question, every day is different.
Yeah,
I'm an early riser. I try to get up every morning and do something for myself, go for a walk, work out. And then I try to attack the day.
love it. So one thing I've realized is pretty cool is that you train a good amount of like different age groups, right?
For sure.
Um, why is that, right? Some people, you know how it is. Some people kind of find their niche and they dive into strictly, high school, strictly college, strictly pros, right?
Yep.
What right now has made you be able to not only train all of these groups of kids, but want to train from those
Yeah.
different levels all the way up?
For sure. I think at heart, I'm a teacher and I'm a coach. And at the younger age groups, I can really teach and coach, and I can see the strides that those players make. So, for example, last night I had a group of 25 first and second graders. And, we went from every possession they did was a travel to towards the end, they were starting to get it and like dribble. When they picked it up, they were passing it. So to be able to see those things, I really, really enjoy. And then also just at the professional level, I mean, you're working and the college level, you're working with some of the best players in the world, some of the best
Hmm.
players in the area. There's a different mindset, there's a different approach, there's a different like level of work that,
Hmm.
and like this, like when you're in the gym with those type of players, like you want to chase that and you want to be involved with that as much as possible because it makes you rise to a level where you need to be at. So,
Absolutely.
I just really love the difference in both each level of basketball that I'm
Yeah.
involved with.
I love it, and it's kind of cool, right? So a lot of segments that I've gotten into with, and I think you'll appreciate this, with former college athletes or high school athletes, whatever, mostly that or pros, right? We talk about the mental side of it,
For
right?
sure.
And to me, it's really cool because being and just like you still are, right? Being an athlete, having the ability to turn that switch on and off, right? I think is huge. So I kind of want to dive in a little bit more than people realize, right? The mentality of a trainer, right? As we get up until like those high school kids that are pretty good, right?
Yep.
The college and the pros. What is your mentality like? You just kind of talked a little bit about it, which I love because I just don't think, bro, I don't think people understand or what we have to do because we have to meet these people where they're at, and then we
For
have to
sure.
figure out a way to get more out of them.
For sure.
So
I think
what's your
one thing
mentality?
that's
Yeah.
I think one thing that's allowed me to kind of excel and do well in the training space is every time I get into the gym, I have energy and my effort is where it always needs to be. There's never a time where I walk in the gym where I'm like I've got a session today. Like no
Right.
matter if it's a fourth grader or if it's an NBA player, like I'm locked in, I have my plan in place, I'm ready to go, the music's up and it's time to work. So that's one
Hmm.
thing that I think I've always done, is that I'm consistent within my approach so that I can always ask that of the athletes I work with. If I'm not consistent in the way I go about my business, it's going to be very difficult for me to go to the player or go to the group of kids and be like, hey, we need to be here today, or we need to be at this level today. If I'm not there, then there's no way that I can ask them to be there. So for me, it's just, I have to show up every day with a willingness to work and with energy. And then I think we can maximize our time in the gym.
Bro, you said it perfect, man. And like, it's funny while you're talking, I'm envisioning myself with different kids in different levels, right? And
For sure.
um, bro, we are in a we're in a profession where we can't fake it.
You're right.
We can't,
Right.
right? Like even the younger kids know, but I'm just like, you know how there's like a good high school player, bro, they're not coming back. They're not gonna come back if you can't meet them. If they didn't get anything from it, they're not. And the
For
further up
sure.
you go, the less you can, you know what I mean, the less ability and options you'll have with these
For
great
sure.
human
And I
beings.
think I think to kind of build on that a little bit too is, once you start working with an athlete a few times, if they know you genuinely care and you can kind of build a relationship with them, then being able to push them or being able to communicate with them becomes so much easier, and it allows you to get the most out of them so they can actually like improve and reach their goals. And that's kind of like one of the biggest things that I do with the players I work with is I just try to figure out their vision, like especially with like the middle school, high school, college, professional players. Like, hey, where is it that you want to go? What goals do you want to reach? Because once we can kind of understand that, we can build a plan around you actually getting there, and then I can hold you accountable.
Hmm.
If you're a high school player and you say you want to play at college, well, this is what that looks like. And from a work perspective, from a way you go about your day-to-day business, from the way you communicate with people, from the way you reach back out to college coaches, or you're aggressive in reaching out to college coaches to get there, like all of that has to come in full circle. And I really think if you can build a relationship with the athletes where they know you have your best interests and then you can hold them accountable, that's what I think really allows like the development to really improve.
Nah, and I think you said it perfect again, bro. I think ultimately it's the connection that we have,
For
right?
sure.
It's this ability, bro. If you don't have that connection, that true bond in the relationship, then neither party's gonna do well, right?
Exactly.
And we all know what it feels like, but there's days where it's hard for us to get to work. It's hard for us to do this and that, and for us to have that relationship, to be like, hey, listen, man, I know you're struggling today, but we gotta push through, right? It's gonna be
Absolutely.
worth it in the end. You know what I mean? So I think that's awesome. Um, I kind of want to double back a little bit before we talk about some pro players and different stuff like that. Um, Kind of going back to your college basketball career, right?
Yep.
It's a two-part question, but what was what was your favorite personal accomplishment, would you say?
My favorite personal accomplishment, man, I think honestly, just the total career that I was able to have after what I went through post my high school career is something that like I didn't think I was actually going to be able to get. Like when I broke
Hmm.
my foot for a third time and like I went to get surgery and I was going through that process, I was like I didn't really even remember what it was like to like just be on a basketball court and like have fun and do it.
Right,
So I think
right.
to me, like my biggest accomplishment, like outside of the awards, outside of winning games, was just to be able to experience that
Mm,
and to like play real minutes in a college game again, be competitive again, and to have that experience. I think that was my biggest accomplishment personally, and the one that I look back most on, and I'm like, I was able to play, and that's what I was like
yeah,
most proud of.
yeah. And I think no, I do. I think that's lit, man. I think like I didn't get hurt until this past year. It's the first time I've ever really gotten injured for real. But I can't imagine breaking my foot three times like out of high school,
Yeah,
first year of college. You know what I mean? And I think it's cool how your personal goal really embodies, bro, who you are to me. You know what I'm saying? It's
for sure.
this willingness to work hard but fight through adversity, but also to keep pushing. You know what I mean? So the next question, right, would be what was probably your favorite team accomplishment at Cortland State?
Definitely my freshman year, we went to the NCAA tournament. We were a couple of seconds away from getting to the Sweet 16. Just being able to experience that. We won a conference championship. And then, from there, we didn't get back to that point my sophomore, junior, senior year. But, just again, being in those competitive games and like, there's 4 minutes left, we're up five or we're down five. We got to try to find a way to win a game. Just being a part of all those games was big time. That's what you play basketball for.
Absolutely, man. And I was like, that's cool. I can kind of relate, right? At playing basketball at Morrisville too. We made it to the Elite Eight, and it was amazing. Yeah. Made it to Elite Eight, and it was awesome, right? That
For
experience of
sure.
winning with the team and doing all that cool stuff was awesome. All right, cool. So the reason why I doubled back, bro, back to your college career and that, because I have a question. Um, what would you say about people that discredit Division III basketball? You know what I mean? From someone that had obviously, like I said, great personal accolades and great team accolades. There's still, I feel like, as a Division III player myself too, I still feel like there's a little like riff we get. You know what I mean? Like, it's just D3 hoops, right? It's
For
just D3
sure.
football or whatever. And to me, obviously, it's bigger than that. But how do you feel about that?
I think, to be honest with you, is most people just don't know. So they're able to see Division 1 football. They're able to see Division 1 basketball. So they say, okay, that's what that is. So if you're playing Division 3, it can't be anything similar. And to me, like I say this to high school kids all the time, okay, great. You want to play in college? I'm in the Poughkeepsie area, so SUNY New Paltz, Vassar College, they're 5 minutes away. Go to a
Okay.
game and see if you could play 30 minutes. Right now, go to a game and see if you could play 30 minutes. And 98% of the people couldn't play probably 5 minutes right
Right.
away, right now as a high school player. So I think most of the disconnect with it is they just really don't know what like Division 3 athletes look like. They don't know what the Division 3 game looks like. And, until you actually go to a game, until you're actually a part of it, then you can kind of see like, whoa, like there's people that are athletic. There's people that can make shots. There's people that play defense. And, I think the biggest difference in the level where people see it is, size and athleticism.
Right.
Bigs in
Right.
the Division 3 level are probably 6'5" to 6'7". You might get an occasional, 6'10" guy that plays center. And then 1 through 5 is super athletic normally in Division 1, where,
Right.
you might have two or three like real athletes on your team in Division 3. But,
Hmm.
from like an X's and O's standpoint, from a skills standpoint, the gap isn't that big. So I think just, the big thing with Division 3 is a lot of people don't see it, and a lot of people don't care to see it because it's easy and it's accessible to watch Division 1. But I think, the game's starting to grow a little bit more, especially now with social media. There's multiple cameras at every game, so you're able to see highlights, you're able to see certain plays.
Right.
And then I think that's going to help grow that level a little bit too.
Nah, I think that's 100% right, though. I think the word disconnect was huge when you were explaining that, right? Because I also think there's a disconnect um, with us, right? The guys that played and people that do know. I don't think we do the best job. I'm speaking in totality, right? Of sharing that information, right? So
Right.
so when we get kids to be like, "Hey, man, it's okay if you go D3. It's actually very competitive." You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's actually still you're still getting a lot from it, and you're still growing on all these attributes that you want to develop you into a phenomenal young man one day, right? Or young woman. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect there because a lot of D3 athletes, right? Most of them don't play pro. Most of them don't end up being trainers. You know what I'm saying? Most of them end up getting right into the work field,
for sure.
and they don't get to share their experience, which is partly why I have this platform of the podcast, right? Is to give these people that have these stories, man, an opportunity to hopefully enlighten somebody else one day that can kind of help them as
For
well.
sure. And it's
Um,
funny now too with Division 3. If
yeah,
you're a high school senior right now and you want to play Division 1 basketball, you're probably better off going Division 3 for 2 years right now and then going. And that's a conversation we can go on for over an hour about. But the way colleges are now recruiting players,
hmm,
there's not many Division 1 schools that are getting a high school senior that they're going to have come impact their team, but they're
right.
trying to find players that can go, they've played at a level somewhere, Division 2, Division 3, or a lower level Division 1, and they're trying to be able to put them on their teams and be like, okay, you can play right away because you have 2 years of experience. So topic for another day, but that's definitely something that people shouldn't overlook. You can go somewhere and play for 2 years, and then, with the way the transfer portal is now, you can always find a way.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna tell them like just hinting at that, the transfer portal, it's a big deal though, right? I mean, realistically, from a coaching standpoint, are you taking a high school senior? Are you taking a kid that played at Arizona for 2 years and had some great stuff but wants to transfer out, right? it's tough. Like I'm
It
taking the
for
transfer.
sure.
You know what I mean? That's just what I want to win now too as
Yeah,
well.
and you got to think too from a coaching perspective. Coaches now, let's say they bring in a freshman class. If some of them play well and excel, they're looking for the next best thing. And if some of
Mm,
them don't play, they're thinking, well, I can't play here, so I have to leave anyways.
mm,
So it creates an interesting perspective as a coach. Like if you recruit and you bring in all, freshmen, do we see them through for their entire career or do we not? So it's just an interesting time within that. I don't personally
right,
know what the right answer is. I don't know what I would do if I was a coach right now, but
right.
I'm sure it's probably a healthy blend of both to try to
Yeah.
maintain a program structure and then also try to be competitive and win now. But it's definitely an interesting time for college athletics and for players that want to be college athletes.
Bro, that's so crazy you mentioned that though, because it's true, right? We think of like John Calipari, right? We think of Kentucky, right? It's if you come in, we have to win because there's a million other guys that want your spot, and you're probably not going to stay anyway because you want to leave as well,
For sure. Yeah, it's
right?
interesting.
And it's crazy, like you said. Do you maintain the program? Does that become the new? It could also, I think, that might become the new identity, right, of the program. Is like, listen, we push kids out, and that's what we do.
For sure.
All right, man. So next topic. Some of the NBA players you worked with and worked around and trained around. Just talk about that experience. Talk about maybe highlight a couple names. But even just like trainers, people that kind of put you in that position to be in those gyms and to be around those types of people.
Yeah, for sure. So when I started out, like I mentioned earlier, I got connected with a couple of trainers, Steve D'Agostino, who I do a lot of work with still now, and TJ Sackman, who I do some work with as well. They were able to mentor me a little bit and kind of give me like, hey, this is what it looks like if you want to become a trainer full time. And then, I was always available and I was always willing to say yes to things if I could go get to them. So, when COVID happened, I helped Dags with pre-draft, and from there, him and I have done some more professional stuff together. Same thing with DJ. I helped him with some camps and some other pro players. Right now, I'm working with a handful of different pros. I was just in Atlanta the last couple of weeks working with Patty Mills and DJ.
Nice.
DJ's with him full time. I've been with
Okay.
Cam Thomas now. This is my second season with Cam Thomas throughout the year. We work out on off days, game days when they don't have shoot arounds, just making sure he's staying sharp and consistent with his work. And that one's been pretty rewarding too, because when we first started working out, he wasn't playing really much at all.
Hmm.
And, so we continued to work out. We continue to focus on certain things. And now obviously he's having a really, really great year. I spent some time with Kevin Herter. He's one of Dags's guys. Just an incredible player, a great person as well too. Kyle O'Quinn, I've worked with for the last few years. So there's been a handful of players that I've been around. That's a great space to be in because again, you're working with some of the best players in the world. They do what they do at a really, really high level. And one of the things to me that's really stands out is each player is unique as a person. So they're all completely
Hmm.
different people and they're all completely different players. So they're able to master that one thing that they do really, really well to make it there. Certain
Hmm.
players are great scorers, certain players are great shooters, certain players are good in defense, certain players are good, offense in a short roll and making floaters. Some players are good just with a little bit of everything. So,
Hmm.
working with some of those players at that level, that's what really stands out to me is just how unique each person is and how unique they are as players as well too.
I don't know how many players you worked with that played or wanted to play overseas. Have you worked with any that are or not?
Yeah, I've worked with a handful of overseas players too. I still work with them when they're home in the off seasons as well.
Cool. So can you kind of just give a little insight on on that, right? Like the overseas kind of basketball player life. Not necessarily playing, but from a training perspective, as far as like what you hear from them. You know what I mean? Like when they. So I don't know if you know Mike Henry, but it's crazy. We have
Yep.
the
Yeah,
same
for
thing.
sure.
Okay, cool. And like he'll come home, right? And it's like he's home, bro, and he's hooping for like 2.5 months, maybe at most, and then he's gone.
Go on.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's right back at it. So I'm pretty sure like they got to come home and they got to work, right? And then they got to get right back.
Yeah, I would say the number one thing for an overseas player is you have to realize the sacrifice you're making. So, like, he knows, like you said, he's home for 2 months. So, realistically, he's living in another country for 10 months out of that year. So, like,
Right.
he's missing a lot of things that are going on back home, but he's willing to do that to become a professional. And That's not easy for a lot of players. I know that wouldn't be easy for me if I was a player. So I would think that's, one of the things that you have to understand is like you almost have to, you're obviously not going to forget what you have going on at home, but you almost
Right.
have to put that behind you a little bit so you can focus on what's ahead if you're trying to carve out a professional career.
Hmm.
And then the other thing with overseas basketball, there's so many different levels. The more you
Hmm.
can get connected with the right people that can kind of show you the way of the country you're trying to play in or show you the different levels and the leagues that you could be at. It just gives you a little more context and clarity on the situation you're getting into, and then you can try to grow it and go from there. But overseas is very, very interesting. Some players play in a few
Yeah.
different countries throughout the year. Sometimes they're in one spot. But it's a very interesting avenue, but it allows players to continue to play basketball and see the world. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's a great thing.
Absolutely. And I think that's cool too for you to like from a trainer's mindset. We've been talking about kind of like the mindset of the trainer, right? And how for you it's like, yo, I'm getting this dude just fresh off a plan, but he's only home for 3.5 months at most. So we gotta work, right?
Yep,
And I think it's cool, right? Because your mentality, you have to turn up a little bit, right? The
for
energy,
sure.
the effort from a training aspect, from the trainer's aspect has to be up a little bit more. Um, in closing, bro, I wanted to ask you a little bit about you've been kind of hinting at it a lot, but just some advice for kids, high school, college, pro, overseas, whatever it is, right? Just some advice on um, some things that could help their game. You posted something on Instagram, and I had to reshare it because it was cool for me. I'm big on balance, right? And I think that's something that a lot of these kids don't understand. There's got to be a balance in the multiple facet of settings in our lives, right?
For
So
sure.
some advice for these kids and even some of these grown men, right, that are still pursuing it and still doing it and women.
Yeah, for sure. So I think number one, like every time I get in the gym, especially with the younger players and the high school players I work with, like it needs to be fun for you. Basketball itself is a game. Like you have to be out here and you have to enjoy it. And anything that you enjoy, you're naturally going to want to put your effort and energy towards it. So my number one thing is like make sure you're having fun with this. So there's a lot of different things that can stress you out throughout, basketball, AAU, recruiting, are you getting better, your high school coach isn't playing you, so on and so forth. But you need to have enjoyment in that process, whatever that process is for you, and then you'll be able to really maximize your time in the gym. So for me, I just try to keep it simple. Number one, we're here to have fun, and number two, we're here to get better. If we can start out and we can make sure we're enjoying what we're doing right now, then we can be locked in and focused on the things that we need to be so that we can actually improve our games.
I love it. I love it, man. Listen, Coop, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate um, probably even more importantly, I appreciate what you're doing, right? You're beyond impacting and affecting these lives of people positively, right? And like we know as trainers, we understand impact, but I think even sometimes when people tell us, we're like, wow, that's kind of crazy, right?
For
So for
sure.
me as an outsider, like from what I see from the outside looking in, I'm like, man, this dude's got the world at his hands right now. You know what I mean? So just keep working, man. Stay hungry, bro, and stay safe out there, brother.
I really appreciate that, bro. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no doubt, bro.